Today, we're diving into an issue that's been frustrating genealogists for years: the lack of consistency in genealogy platforms and how they handle titles and ranks like doctor, reverend, general, or senator. If you've ever struggled with keeping these titles attached to your ancestors' names as you move between genealogy software and online trees, you're not alone. Let's break it all down and figure out if there's a real solution. Howdy, welcome to Family History Fanatics. If you're new here, my name is Devin Noel Lee, and I love helping people find meaning and connection through their family trees. So let's get into today's topic. This all started when I mentioned in a previous video my frustration with Ancestry and Family Tree Maker not having a designated prefix field. That means important titles like military ranks, religious designations, or professional honors can get lost in this shuffle. Imagine seeing General Robert E. Lee in your family tree reduced to just Robert E. Lee. It just feels wrong, right? The issue here is that different genealogy software and online platforms handle titles inconsistently. Some have a title field, but they hide it and bury it somewhere in the facts section. Others force people to find workarounds, which only makes things messier when we try to sync trees across platforms. Now, let's dive into what y'all had to say about this topic, because there were a lot of opinions. Karen L. suggested using Ancestry My Tree tags to add military ranks. While My Tree tags are great, they don't transfer to other platforms and don't appear in family tree views or reports. So while it might help in isolated cases, it doesn't solve the problem across multiple platforms. But Karen L., I so wish My Tree tags were a bigger thing than they are. When they were first announced, I was so excited. I made a video about it. I couldn't wait for everybody to start using it. But the enthusiasm has fizzled, and that's disappointing. Bill Hawkins proposed us using the also known as fact. This could work if there is a title field that appears before the name in the also known fact option. And then it would work even better if you can toggle between the preferred name in reports. So if you have the main name and you have the also known name and you want to be able to toggle to the also known name on your pedigree chart or in various reports, that would be awesome. But here's the catch. It has to work the same way across all genealogy programs or we're back to square one. Janice Bond admitted, I know it isn't right, but it works for me. And that is using the suffix field for titles and even birth and death dates. Now, I get the need for clarity, but inconsistent use of the suffix field just creates more confusion. Suffixes are meant for things like junior, senior, PhD, not military ranks or distinguishing life dates. I'm sorry. Don't get me started on emojis and suffix fields either. I know some people promote it, but again, inconsistency is a problem. Joan Eisenberg and Sharon Tabor both use the suffix field for titles because Ancestry and Family Tree Maker don't display them correctly otherwise in the name indexes. Now, again, this problem isn't what works for individuals. It's that we have to find workarounds in the first place. Additionally, Roots Magic, for example, already displays titles in the name index properly. If you're looking for George Bancroft and you have 3 of them, and one of them is a general, one of them is a doctor, and the third one is a junior, those names show up in the index. If other platforms would follow suit, we wouldn't have to resort to, of course it's wrong, but I'm doing it solutions. Now, I'm not picking on any of the viewers. I love your comments. I truly do. This is a discussion. Don't walk away thinking that I think you're wrong. I'm just pointing out there's problems. So how could we get to a universal solution? Now, Marilyn argued that titles and ranks shouldn't be in the name fields because people aren't born with them. And I get it, but here's the thing. If we're sticking to proper grammar and genealogy practices, the title should be right next to the name, not buried in a fact list. Otherwise, the proper use of a suffix should be something like Francis D. Alcott, president of Ramsey College, not Francis D. Alcott, president. Titles belong before the name and suffix follows the name. Keeping these distinctions clear would make genealogy records much easier to understand. But you have made a valid point. I get it. I get it. Now, N. Clark made a great point. Ranks as suffixes often get truncated, and while Family Tree Maker allows titles and reports, Ancestry doesn't display them properly. And Clark mentioned that Family Tree Maker's 2024 might finally allow titles in the tree view, so maybe there's hope on the horizon, but it just depends on when that information will be lost going up to Ancestry, and whether you can transfer it to other platforms as well. That is really the issue. Jessica Reynolds raised the FamilySearch standard that the primary name should be the birth name. But what about cases where someone's legally or socially recognized name changed? If we allow adopted names and married names, shouldn't earned titles get the same treatment? For instance, my granny's birth name was Marie Anderson, but she was adopted as an infant, just days after her birth, and a new birth certificate was issued. She was known her entire life as Louise Long. Well, except when she married and became Louise Brown. But she was still Louise Long Brown. Even though Marie Anderson is her birth name, almost no one knows it, knew it, or used it. If we acknowledge changes like this, where we probably should put Louise Long as her name on the tree and Marie Anderson as her also known name, and then make a note that it is her birth name and that it really wasn't in use very long, why not also allow titles that people earned and were known by later in life? You see where the dilemma comes in. We have these standards, and yet there's situations where the standards get broken. So I have to say it again because I want to make sure I'm being clear. And I'm generally grateful for every comment. I make sure to attribute those comments to so users know I'm making up the comments people suggest on this channel, but I want to highlight the debate, the confusion, the workaround that people have developed to deal with this inconsistency. So please, no hurt feelings for the people who I highlighted in this channel. So if today was sometime in the 1990s when database programming was still a Wild West, I could understand the diversity in approaches on what to do with titles. But it's 2025, and with all the genealogy standards I've heard preached, from manuals dubbed the Bibles of genealogy standards to educators at conferences and podcasts. I mean, we just had Roots Tech for crying out loud, and people were preaching the standards. Love you guys, but you know there are people out there who do preach standards very strongly. But with all of that, you would think we could have some consistency. Otherwise, should we be telling people to plant their tree everywhere? You can't keep the trees consistent, and you spend more time trying to get the information into the different formats. Why bother? With so many conflicting standards, it's becoming too time-consuming. Has anybody watched the videos that I talked about sharing a family tree to FamilySearch and Ancestry, and I didn't even get to WikiTree and to MyHeritage and Find My Past and so on? Maybe we just pick one platform and stick with it. But is that really helpful? And does that ensure our genealogy lives on after we're gone? So what's the ideal fix? That's the discussion I'm hoping this video generates. What is the fix? Now, here's what needs to happen. A universal title field that appears next to the name in all genealogy software and online trees, ensuring consistency across platforms and making it easy to read names with earned ranks or positions. User control over display settings so we can choose whether the title appears on reports, charts, and tree views, so that if you don't want the title to show up because it is not given at the time of birth, then you don't have to have it show up. But users should be able to toggle whether general appeals on the family tree because their ancestor's name is Robert E. Lee, even though that wasn't the name at birth. It differentiates him between others in the tree. It would be nice to have that option. The third thing is title fields need to sync properly across platforms so we don't lose data when we transfer between programs. If I have doctor in Roots Magic, I want to see doctor when I upload my tree to Ancestry, not have it appear in some random miscellaneous facts section that I forget even exists. Before we continue, if I've given you value, please click the like button, share this video, and leave a comment. These actions tell you that Family History Fanatics offers great value and other people need to come and check it out. If a title was earned later in life, an option to date it so it only appears after the person achieved it, particularly when you're generating narrative reports, now that would be slick. For example, if someone became a senator in 1892, the title shouldn't appear in those reports for years prior to 1892. This would allow for accurate representations without misattributing ranks or positions too early in a person's life. Right now, Gramps seems to be leading the way with a clear title system. Will the rest follow? What I mean is, Gramps has a biographical details screen. It has a place for titles, the name, and the surname. It also explains that a prefix has a different use in other cultures. This would be O'Rourke, DeVal, and other examples like that. When we talk about consistency, they have said, hey, this practice has actually faded out over time, and people have put in the D in front of Val into one field and just called themselves DeVal, when really that is a prefix, and the honorifics that go before a name are titles, but they put it all together in one screen, teach you standards. Gramps, you guys are champs. Gramps is the champs. That's all I gotta say. So I'm gonna open the floor up to you. How do you think titles should be handled in your family tree? Drop a comment below and let's keep the discussion going. But remember, do not misattribute the need to have the conversation where it leads to hurtful feelings. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our conversations and tips regarding genealogy.